The jobs report for April hitting the wires. Non-farm payrolls greater 177,000. We're expecting, as Joe pointed out, 133,000. 177,000 would be the second best of the year outside of what's in the rearview mirror.
We got to talk about what Uncle Trump has already accomplished because, of course, mainstream media has been all doom and gloom. Oh, my goodness, Trump the destroyer. He's going to destroy everything. Hide your kids, hide your wife, hide everybody, hoard everything because all the prices of everything is just going to go through the roof. It's all going down the toilet. Well, according to the numbers, that's most definitely not the case. So with that being said, let's dive in.
All right, breaking moments ago, the April jobs report just released showing steady gains amid some economic uncertainty. I want to bring in CNN's Matt Egan, who joins me now with more. All right, what are we seeing in the numbers? What is the context here?
Yeah, Omar, we were bracing for a slowdown in the jobs market. We did not get that. We got steady hiring. This jobs market is just relentless. Let me run you through the key numbers.
Yeah, let's do it.
177,000 jobs were added in the month of April. That easily beat forecasts for 135,000. So not even close there. The unemployment rate stayed low. It stayed at 4.2%. When we look at where the jobs are right now, we're seeing solid gains in a number of places. Accommodation and food services, right? Restaurants, hotels, hospitals, healthcare, private education, all of them adding jobs. One place where we saw a loss of jobs again was the federal government as the DOGE cuts to the workforce continue. But still, when we really zoom out here, this jobs market has been solid, right? I mean, 177,000 jobs. That, when we look at the trend, look at this. We saw that March was actually significantly revised lower to 185,000 jobs added. That's down from the original report. So you can see that there really isn't all that much of a change here. And these are still very solid numbers. Now, this is a big contrast to what's shown up in the surveys, right? We've seen so much gloom and doom from consumers, small business owners, CEOs. There's all of these concerns about the economy, about the trade war. One thing I would note as we look at the market reaction, futures were up ahead of this, they remain up. One thing I would just stress is that this does not mean that the economy is out of the woods, right?
So there you have it. And that is where I'm going with this. And you heard him mention it there at the end. But let's continue on because that's not it.
436,000 increase in the number of people who are employed. So this is an amazing report. The number of people, the labor force participation rate rose. So this is a really strong number. I wanted to mention one other quick thing. You know, about 2 weeks ago, every headline, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Washington Post, was, oh, the stock market is crashing. And since then, the market has been up, what, like 2,800 points.
Yeah, well, you don't see that
by the way, I don't see headlines about that.
That was the point, that Scott Bessent made. Yeah, Scott Bessent made the same point yesterday. That, you know,
exactly, he made that point. But 400...
Exactly. We're all these same people that were all doom and gloom. Oh my goodness, Trump's destroying. But you heard him mention it there at the end of that first clip. Even with these great numbers, mainstream media and Democrats are still trying to figure out a way to spin it in a bad light. And if you don't believe me, well, you know I always come with the clips, baby. So here you go.
The April jobs report was released just moments ago. It showed the United States added 177,000 jobs last month, which topped economists' expectations. The unemployment rate was unchanged at 4.2%. So, Peter Baker, we know this White House has been looking for any sign of good economic news in recent weeks. We are now a month since their self-proclaimed Liberation Day, which started the tariffs and trade wars. And there's certainly most of the economic signals have been worrisome, to say the least. This one, a little better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is something they can point to. Of course, all this is the same roughly kind of job growth we saw under Biden, which they said was terrible and ruinous and disastrous. So, you know, they're going to spin it. They'll talk about how great it is. It doesn't necessarily tell us where things will go in a month or 2 months if these tariffs really do go into effect. And it's also interesting, you know, we don't know yet the full impact of all of these layoffs or, you know, attempts to lay off these thousands and thousands of federal government workers, the spin-off effects that's going to have on the economy in different parts of the country, particularly even red states where there are actually government workers who are.
Yeah, so you heard that there. And I hear this nonsense about Biden. They keep bringing that up. Well, the job growth under Biden was blank. It was good, right? But they failed to mention that a lot of those jobs were government jobs. You remember all those IRS agents that they hired and said that they were going to tax the rich? Yeah, okay. Okay. That's a load of crap, a total load of crap. But it continues on.
Considering all of the questions about how the president's trade strategy is going to ripple through the economy overall. So you've got 177,000 jobs created. You've got healthcare jobs created. You've also got, you can see warehouse and transportation jobs in here. I think that's directly tied to his tariffs because you had a lot of front-loaded companies rushing in inventories. And so there were jobs probably surrounding that. But when you look in federal jobs, 9,000 lost, 26,000 federal jobs lost so far this year. You'll start to see that number grow. And here's why. There have been a lot of government layoffs. And anybody who took a buyout or is furloughed from the government and is still getting a paycheck, for example, if you had a buyout, you're not counted yet. So there could be a lag before those numbers really start to show up here. So this is the kind of a number that really shows the durability of the American job market with all of this uncertainty swirling around, Jose.
And Christine, so it's interesting because for so long, I would venture to guess probably years, if not decades, a lot of the economic growth in jobs was in the federal government part.
Yeah, I mean, yes, indeed. And that has been a part that has been a sturdy, you know, some economists and labor economists would call it kind of like a shock absorber. This is a part of the labor market that's a shock absorber when times turn because you have this steady, solid part of the economy, the labor force that is employed. And this is the president and his team. They don't want that anymore. So they've been aggressively firing American workers. So that number will begin to change, no question. And I will say, Jose, also overall, these numbers, these are not the gangbuster numbers of the past couple of years. These are, it's a steady cooling in a resilient labor market. This is exactly what the Fed wants to see.
Firing American workers. Yeah, government workers who are paid on our tax dollars. Absolutely. Fire them all as far as I'm concerned, including some of these congressmen and women. I wouldn't be sad about that. All right, I would not be sad about that. But yeah, I just wanted to show you guys that because it's quite interesting how even when they call doom and gloom and then the actual numbers come out and they're not doom and gloom, they still find a way to try to spin it in a bad light, right? To try to make Trump look terrible still, right? Oh, well, it's not as good as the numbers say, you know, because X, Y, and Z. You know, it's just super interesting, and it's why people no longer watch the news. It's not the news anymore. It's simply hate Trump, Trump bad, the Republicans are terrible, Democrats are absolutely amazing. That's what the news is. And I had to put that in air quotations because it's not the news anymore. It's glorified YouTube channels. That's all it is. That happen to be on television. Hell, they should put me on television over these folks. This is absolutely garbage. Garbage reporting. But I'm just a guy that talks on the internet from time to time. What do you think? Let me know. Thanks for tuning in as always. Peace and love. I'm out.